So again, I'm a quality engineer at Keller Williams, and I started on the web team, and I went over to mobile, and we had this chatbot solution. So you might have chatbot on your web or on a native application on your mobile device, and maybe you're not quite sure how to test it or how to scale it. That's exactly the challenge we had. So when I joined this team about 2-3 years ago, this is what our tests look like. It was very manual. It's literally a Google Sheets. Everyone in QA had access to it. When we'd get a new feature, we'd add it to the module, we'd create a test case for it, and we'd add questions. Those questions in Dialogflow or any other sort of chatbot service, they're called utterances. So that phrase might come up several times. So those utterances, we would literally have to type the microphone button. We'd have to tap it and then talk into the phone, wait a second or two for the phone to think about it, and then it would send back an answer, which is off to another column, maybe E, and it would have that answer that the chatbot writes in. So because it's an automated dynamic solution, like you can't really test a mobile device through Appium for a chatbot, right? Because there's no Selenium link. Like it's a dynamic phrase that will change maybe every single time, and you can't really tie an ID to it. So how do we resolve this? This is what I found. It's an open source solution from Botium. It didn't cost us any money. I'll explain the benefits of it later, but here's how it works basically. It's open source on GitHub. Anyone can download it right now. It has a sandbox environment for your chatbots, and it can actually multiply those for parallel testing with its own grid. It has live connectors into things like Facebook and Watson, and then it integrates with these three things up here. The first one, bindings, that's just its glue code between Botium Core and your test runner. So if you're using Mocha or if you're using Jest, it's basically this arrow is the binding, so you can talk to Botium Core. And then the other two components, you can go one of two ways. You can get Botium Box, which is your GUI solution. If you have QAs that are pretty manual and they don't know about programming, that might be the best option for you because it gives a nice little GUI with a bunch of reporting options. And then the CLI is if you're used to CLI already, if you're good at scripting, it's really easy to do, and it integrates with your CI pipelines. This is a conceptual diagram of our product. So we had Google Speech to Text, which is Google's ML API, talks to our application, which is the Kelly client. It brings in data from Firestore, which is what used to be Cloud Data Store on Google Cloud, and it's a NoSQL database. And then the client talks to this framework here. The developers did a node framework for all of this testing, and they integrated something called Jovo, which is a platform as a service option that you get it on your desktop. You create these things called adaptive cards, and they act as like an independent way to code any sort of utterance and response. So if you want to talk to Dialogflow, you can, but you can also use it for Alexa or maybe I think Watson, a bunch of other things, Google Assistant. We have for our NLU, and that's natural language understanding, it's a subset of natural language processing, we have Dialogflow. So that's a Google service. And then it all talks to Keller Cloud, which is all our realty data, all of data of our agents who are going to be using this device. So this is a really simple conversation file. This is how easy it is to code in Botium. You just right-click in your framework, your IDE, you add a file, and then you end that file with .convo-text, and Botium knows it's a conversation file. And then you really only need two things. You can put a header up here, but you just need the pound symbol and then me, and then the pound symbol bot. And with the me, you say your utterance that you want to talk to your application with, and then the response. So me, hello bot, bot, hello meat bag. Real easy. And then you want to be able to train your chatbot to have different sort of inputs. So the idea isn't that just I was testing that I had a exact sentence and an exact response. I want to know that because it's machine learning, it's supposed to learn over time, that it's gathering more information. So I can say hello in all these different ways, and it's going to tie that into what Dialogflow calls an intent, and that's an area of the code. So all of these are tied to maybe greeting intent. Okay, and then we can do different things in regular expressions to make this a little bit easier. So monthly goals was one of the convo.txt files I had that varies because you could be asking for, 1 month, obviously, and then, switches over to the next month, and you don't want to say get back the exact same data. It's supposed to change. So you use like the pipe symbol, so it can be an or any of these months. Pipe is or. You can use the number symbols. You can use a wildcard, and that way you're still getting that it knows that it's completed this out of that many goals. That's a phrase that's tied to the goal intent. So it's correctly mapping to the goal intent. And then we have our scripting memory.txt file. So the purpose of these are to be similar to a variable that you can manipulate. So it's like case text, like if or case statements in programming, but for each case you put in a different variable you want to plug into this main variable called neighborhood. And here's how that works. So you have neighborhood varied utterance. The utterance is going to vary the different kinds of ways you can say to show me the statistics. We call these snapshots or the statistics about an area snapshots. So I want statistics for very different neighborhoods. I would take these neighborhoods and I would pass it into the neighborhood variable, and it would say show me statistics starting with Fairfax Village, and then find me statistics in Fairfax Village. It would vary your input, but it would also vary your variable. So here's how it looks like all together. So you have your convo file that talks to your utterance file. You pass the varied utterance file, you pass this file in directly, and then you get back their 0 to 9 snapshots in neighborhood. And neighborhood is whichever one of these case statements. So it's passing in, say, the first time it goes through Fairfax Village, it's pulling Fairfax Village, it's plugging Fairfax Village into all of these different utterances. There can be 20 or 50 of them, however many you want. And then it's coming back with your response saying the neighborhood name, and it does that every single time. So benefits of Botium. Hopefully I've convinced you that it's a pretty easy tool to learn. The runner is just typing npm run test Botium. You just have to do an npm install. I've had to do Java, Maven and Gradle. So npm has been great for this project for me. The lead Botium dev responds really quickly on Stack Overflow. When I initially tried to do this Botium solution, I didn't have the API keys, and I had to wait because I didn't have access to implement the solution. I had to wait till a dev joined, and then we had DevOps, and we could give him all those keys. And he had a hard time setting up the node environment, especially with all the integrations with like Poly and Jovo and everything like that. But he found the Botium GitHub, and he just used that, and they talked to him within 24 hours, same as they did for me on Stack Overflow. And they were able to help him get our framework running. So it's got a good community. It allows you to reuse variables. It allows you to quickly run tests against hundreds of utterances. It can remember variables about that convo file for later reuse. You can chain convos to other convos, so you can have a flow of asking things in a certain pattern. And it provides interface elements such as buttons. You can just use a media keyword and it'll replicate like pressing a button. You can actually replicate with an assertion, like having a polygon around an area. Say for the neighborhoods that I was describing, you can put in a location, and you can add that similar to a like a JUnit before and after. You can add that location, run your conversation file, and do a teardown of that location. So it's pretty easy to run, and I really like it, and I'm going to show you how to run it. So this is our framework. It's pretty standard, no JavaScript framework. Everything is defined in environmental files ending in .env or in the package JSON. You describe which tests you want to run here in the test Botium line.
Hey,
so,
Julie, we're still seeing the presentation.
Darn. Okay, hold on. Thank you for telling me. I would have never known. Oh, it's because I shared the application and not the screen. 1 second. I'm going to stop share and then reshare. So, okay. Now y'all see it? Perfect.
Yep,
Okay.
good.
Okay, so I have the varied keyword because I'm using the varied utterance. I have the word varied in that. I have neighborhoods in a lot of things, but that'll run way too many tests if I pass in all those different ones. So I'm just going to run a subset of the neighborhood tests under the varied keyword. Let's see. So it's just npm run test Botium, and it goes through them all. Because I'm only running ones with the varied keyword in it, it's going to skip all the ones that don't match. And you can see how it's going through and saying user asked. So it's going through all the different utterances. I probably have at least 400 different utterances in here. It would have taken me 2 or 3 days to do regression testing by asking all of those manually. But here it's going to take hopefully under 3 minutes. Yeah, it's going to take about a minute. And you can see it skipped all the ones that were not with the varied keyword, and it passed all 64 of them. It didn't fail anything. And it passed the whole test suite. Okay. Do I have time for questions, Joel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Does anyone have any?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any
Oh,
questions.
there you go. So this is supposed to be like a different alternative for Appium, or?
No. This is actually a completely different framework than our Appium framework, but it's pretty helpful for mobile testing for chatbots. If you don't have a chatbot, it probably can help you with your mobile problems. Sorry.
Okay, no, I was just wondering. I heard you bring up Appium, so I guess I misinterpreted. All right.
There may be a way to combine them. We used no JavaScript frameworks for both Appium in this, but they were completely different developers.
So you were talking about how it integrates with Watson and Alexa and things like that. Is it for like typing chatbots, or is this like a Audible chatbot as well?
Just for typing, as far as I know. I don't know if there's any testing solution for Audible stuff.
Right. Cool. That's what I was thinking, but
yeah.
Of course, if your speech to text was done upstream, it could potentially handle that. It may not handle all the ums and ahs you put in your text.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Right. No, at my previous employer, I looked at using this, and I was wanting to use it, but management decided to go a different route. Pretty impressive, Julie.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually had a hard time getting anyone to pick this up when I first suggested it too. And I think that was just a lot of, I don't know that much about setting up JavaScript type frameworks from scratch. But I think as soon as everyone saw it run, it was pretty obvious that it was worth keeping around.
Yeah, if I remember right, the team is in Germany, right?
My team is in Poland, mostly in Ukraine and South America.
No, I'm sorry, I meant the Botium team.
Oh, yes. Florian is German. You'll get a lot of answers around like 2, 3 in the morning our time. All right. I think that's all the questions.
Cool. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Sold. Yeah, so I mean, this is cool. There's a lot of things that, like we're having to deal with now in testing that we didn't necessarily need to until recently. This is definitely one of those. So that's a cool solution. You can probably reach out to Julie on LinkedIn if you have questions, or if you guys are testing any sort of bots and have or specifically chat bots and have questions. You can probably I guess LinkedIn, is that the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can look up, I don't know if my name's displayed there, LAURSEN, but you can look me up. I think I'm probably the first search response on LinkedIn. You can message me from the Meetup chat, the chat option in meetup.com, or you can use Slack.